And there we go. Once the beat drops, that means it's time to chime in here for another day of Live Before Lock. A special day, in fact, because we have MLB Live Before Lock followed immediately by NBA Live Before Lock on the same YouTube stream. So you are in a good place right now, no matter what sport you're playing today, with a 4 p.m. lock time on the East Coast. I'm Chris Spags, joined once again by the top player in DFS, the namesake of this YouTube channel, and of course the website, Awesemo.com. His name's Alex Baker. You know him as Awesemo. How are you doing, Alex?
Hey man, this is a wild afternoon because for some reason MLB and NBA decide to synchronize their schedules today. I think that'll be really interesting. Maybe we'll catch some overlay on some of these bigger tournaments. That would be nice. And to throw it into the mix, we got a game that may or may not play. So I could see today being pretty chaotic. And I mean, it's only a 5-game slate, so I know you're saying for the show you're not super excited about that, and I have to agree with you. I know our job is to get you guys pumped up to play some DFS, but it's also to relate to the audience. And not the most exciting day of MLB, but it is what it is, and they're paying out the money just like always, so we'll do our best.
And some interesting things to talk about despite the short slate today. And again, as Alex mentioned, we do have the NBA's lock time coming up at the exact same time as MLB time. So you'll be able to give us a little more opportunity for MLB, given that the public does seem to favor some of those NBA slates. We'll talk about it all as we go. First off, though, let's do some quick housekeeping. We have a lot of free premium content today at Awesemo.com. So make sure you're taking advantage of all those free things. If you're not yet an Awesemo Plus member, and if you're not an Awesemo Plus member, you should be at Awesemo.com/join. Check out all the packages there. Find one that works for you. Today, we have free premium content that includes the MLB player rankings. I'm going to drop the link into the chat for you guys in the YouTube chat window. 1 second here, but these are the grade form of Awesemo's projections, and they do a great job breaking down everything that you need to know on a slate, especially for a casual player. So let me put this in. Got to put the HTTP in. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. Links in the YouTube chat. Check it out. We also have free NBA ownership rankings today and a free NHL lineup builder day. So if you have not been playing NHL, been a lot of fun for the teams in there, it seems like, with a lot of overtime games. And of course, it's playoff time for the NHL. And our boy Jake Hari doing a great job with that content as well. So check out all of that stuff. And of course, this is a Yahoo Sports show, which is a great thing for us here because that means it's your chance to become a baller, to quote our old pal Laffy. You'll be coming up, I believe, after us with Josh for the NBA show. But at Yahoo, there is a lot of things going on here. And of course, they are the sponsor, so go support them, but really support yourself by playing over there. A less sharp field, but they've got some ways to get you better as a player over there by allowing you CSV upload and CSV edit features for all those people out there who like playing multiple lineups. You may have been spoiled by some of the other sites. Now Yahoo's giving you that chance to do the same thing there, so you can make sure to optimize the right way, approach the process as we talk about so regularly on these shows. Go over there to Yahoo and use the promo code Awesemo, AWESEMO, to get $30 in YSRPs with your deposit. Make better choices. Choose Yahoo Daily Fantasy. And again, just play over there. Alex, real fast, because we got time here. Why not? Tell the people why it's important to play on Yahoo, because you're a man who knows all these sites in and out, and there is definitely an edge to playing on Yahoo.
Yeah, so I think the main reason you need to play on Yahoo is for 90% of people listening, you're not grinding hundreds of dollars every day. And that means that playing on a smaller scale site like Yahoo, you're just going to be playing against much easier competition. And the skill differential between you and your opponents is really how you make money. So any way you can increase that differential is going to be huge. To me, the easiest way is just picking tournaments that are easier. So that's why I think Yahoo is a really smart decision for MLB DFS.
Yeah, great place to play. Again, use that promo code Awesemo to get yourself $30 in YSRPs. Yahoo Sports reward points over there that are just as good as cash in terms of playing tournaments, all the things that you need to do on Yahoo. So go check that out with the promo code Awesemo at Yahoo Sports. All right, let's get into this slate, Alex. And I think the big question people are going to want to know up top, we are going to go game by game, even though the strategy show just did that, because Frankly, we got to fill an hour here, and it makes sense to dig a little deeper on all these games than we might normally on a live before lock show. This Baltimore at Philadelphia game is a crucial one to know up top, Alex. Weather here not looking great, though maybe you have a different inkling there, but very high ownership projected for this Philadelphia stack going against Tom Eshelman, a pitcher who's had nothing going back to last year, has shown even less going so far this year. And in fact, he's probably been lucky so far this year with his mediocre results that he's gotten. But a guy gives up a ton of power. The Philly stack, as I mentioned, really high ownership for Rhys Hoskins, Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto projected. But Alex, let's talk about the weather first. Where are you landing with the weather in this game and the risk factor that you see?
I think it's risky. So I'll talk about the positives and the negatives for this situation, which is the positives are that Philadelphia is way behind on their schedule because they had series with the Marlins that didn't end up playing, and I think maybe they got caught by both of the postponed series. Can't remember quite, but they're basically like 4, 5, 6 games back, depending on which team you're comparing them to. So there does seem to be some urgency to getting in games, and the problem is like they're gonna have to wait to get this one in because it's going to be kind of rainy this afternoon. Depending on where you look, like the radar is pretty far in advance of that like 6 p.m. window we're really interested in. So you got to look at the weather models. They're kind of split. Like some of them say it's gonna stop raining around 6 p.m. I'm just pulling up the latest one. But then one of the ones is this app Dark Sky, and let me refresh that. It says going to be raining at from 6 to 8, and then light rain after 8. So at this point, like you're like this game's not going to start within a couple hours of game time. So you got to be worried that they're just going to call the game, even though, like, if they're patient, they could get it in later. So I don't know. Like, how are you going to handle this?
I mean, honestly, it's tough because the Phillies really do jump out. I feel like I've talked about them as being a stack that I've enjoyed pretty much every live before lock show that we've done so far in this baseball season. And, a lot of reason to go there again today because of Eshelman. So, to me, I think if there's a chance this game playing, I probably will still have a good amount of it. I am playing a little more NBA than MLB today overall in terms of the volume of lineups, but I do think any MLB lineups I'm going to be putting in, I expect to get some Philadelphia in there because it's a short slate, and I really think Eshelman is not good, and Philadelphia does have a lot of guys with power who can hit from both sides of the plate. So I certainly like the equation a bit, but as we know with weather, and especially as you mentioned, if the game does end up being dragged out, we have seen guys like Trevor Bauer talk publicly about how the baseball players themselves are not enjoying this whole thing of not knowing if a game's going to play or not. They get warmed up, they go through their process, and they're waiting around. I guess that's the question for you, Alex. Is it possible that these guys get going and warmed up and then we don't even see the pitchers go because the game gets delayed?
Sorry, I just had I accidentally deleted half my MLB spreadsheet, so I was able to undo that. That was close to a disaster here, but sorry, I got distracted. So
just talking about the idea of the pitchers here getting warmed up, ready to go. And then if the weather delays, for as long as you're talking about where it could be hours, like, is it possible that we don't even see Tom Eshelman out there and we get some, not that's going to be much better for Baltimore, but is that even a chance here that we go in expecting one pitcher matchup and then becomes a bullpen day or something else?
I don't think this one is that'd be likely to happen because it's pretty steady rain. It's not heavy rain, it's pretty light rain, but it's just going to be raining like lightly for the next few hours. So I assume they're not going to warm up until that ceases, and a lot of times they'll delay it even further. Like if there's more rain on the horizon. So I think the only difference would be maybe the temperature decreases a little bit, and then there's less scoring. But I assume that's baked into this 9.5 over under, which, as you mentioned, Philly is the highest team total of the slate.
Yeah, so let's talk about this. And I guess on the hopes that it does play with all that the risk that we talked about for weather. And again, keep your eyes peeled there as we get closer to lock with what you're looking for weather-wise, and check all the usual sites and Twitter handles that we all know cover weather pretty well. But yeah, that's definitely a risky game here. But when we still have to talk about and take at face value, the Baltimore side, going to Jake Arrieta, merely not a move that I do too often personally. I feel like he's kind of in that mix of there it goes out. We're back.
We good?
In case
I feel like I'm watching.
If anybody out there is a wrestling fan, Alex's camera is like WWE's camera work now, where they shake it over.
I feel like I'm watching Blair Witch.
If Alex was facing the quarter, it would have been very bad. Baltimore side here, a team we talked about them before. Actually, I think on our last slide before lock show, Baltimore does stink, but they do have, and they don't have a lot of guys who strike out at a very high clip. The top three of that order and their lineup has been confirmed. Hanser Alberto, not a big strikeout guy, under a 9% K rate versus righties over the last season plus. Santander under league average. Jose Iglesias also pretty substantially under league average at 14%. I don't see this being a good strikeout matchup for Arrieta to get into. But Alex, the hitters for Baltimore or Arrieta, do you have any sort of interest in either side?
Yeah, I think you gotta consider Arrieta just because Baltimore is a pretty weak team, and he's not a great strikeout pitcher. But on a 5-game slate, we gotta take what we can get. So I think Arrieta is fine. Yeah, as you mentioned, Baltimore doesn't strike out a ton. They're not a scary lineup though, so. Overall, probably about average as far as matchup. So Arrieta does seem to be a guy that'll make the player pool. Like all of these guys pretty much seem around the same value to me. Actually, on today's slate.
And Arrieta, a guy who does go fairly deep into games, just under 6 innings pitched per game over the last season plus. So certainly some ways here, even if he doesn't get the strikeouts, if he gets those outs and keeps the damage to a minimum, some ways he can get there. The Baltimore hitters, though, really hard to make a case for that stack. And Arrieta also seems appropriately owned at 29% on DraftKings. I don't really see any sort of leverage there, but that side is just sort of is what it is. Sums up the slate pretty well. Philadelphia side, though, we talked about it briefly before we talked about the weather. These guys really do look like they should be hitting the ball pretty well. On the year, Rhys Hoskins is a guy I've taken in our home run picks, and we will still do home run picks today. And hopefully not all from this game and it gets rained out. But Hoskins hasn't had any home runs at all this year, and his ISO for the year, 0.048. Andrew McCutchen as well, also hitting pretty poorly to start the year. Bryce Harper has been a monster, as I guess you would expect and hope. JT Realmuto also looking good. Jay Bruce, the guy I should have picked instead of Rhys Hoskins the other day, been hitting the ball incredibly well to start the year. A 441 ISO for him and a somewhat limited at-bat sample here. But I like all these Philly hitters. I think there's a lot of ways you can stack it up, even if you didn't go to guys like Rhys and Andrew McCutchen up top. But Alex, how are you feeling about this Philadelphia stack? Let's say taking the weather part of the out of the equation completely.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, as you said, they got a lot of power. It looks like 6 out of their 9 batters are above average in ISO. So that's definitely nice. And a lot of them even sprinkle in some stolen base upside. Like there's not really like one guy that doesn't steal any bases. So that's kind of nice. So I think that especially as you were saying, Tom Eshelman's not really a scary matchup at all. So you got to really like the Phillies bats here.
Yeah, Eshelman going back to last year, giving up a 253 ISO to lefties, a 290 ISO to righties, giving up a 7.2 xFIP to lefties, 7.1 xFIP to righties. So these are the reasons why. Also, 11.5% K rate so far this year, 13% going back to last year, well under the average of 22.9%. So lots of reasons here to go to these hitters instead of going to Eshelman. Eshelman, I think, one of the worst pitchers we generally see on slates, and we could see him today, but hopefully the weather cooperates and gives us that shot. Guys, hit the like button as well here. We're going to keep going game by game and do the home run picks in 15 minutes. And of course, make sure to stay tuned until after the show because we have the the NBA live before lock coming up next. Josh and Laffy doing that one, taking you guys through an interesting slate today for NBA with a lot of important play-in games for the Western Conference teams and a lot of other teams not trying at all. So we'll have a bunch to hit on that show. So make sure you stay tuned on this exact stream the second that we go off the air. Tampa Bay heading into a matchup with Boston, Alex. 5.2 implied runs for Tampa Bay going against Kyle Hart, a guy they're calling up here, has not had any major league numbers, at least that I had seen. The minor league numbers for him, I think, seemed pretty standard. Really didn't jump out to me in any category, but maybe you'll disagree there. Let's talk about Hart first, I guess, Alex, because he's very cheap. And people do like playing a cheap guy in the hopes that maybe he's got something new he brings to the table. So Kyle Hart, is he in play for you at all?
Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting because Kyle Hart, he hasn't pitched yet this year. So I'm trying to Google some information about pitch count. I assume he just didn't make that roster to start the year. So pulling that up, he's not really a great strikeout pitcher either. So I think that guy you get in your lineups. So I'm like sorry.
The multitasking game is strong today.
Yes. Apparently it's not that good. So I'm pulling up his AAA numbers because that's usually the best indicator for the strikeout potential. And he had a 19% K rate at AAA last year, 27% at AA. So below average in strikeouts, I'd say. And I got my NBA spreadsheet up here for some reason. All right. Tampa Bay, they've been one of the better lineups this year. So, like, there's really no reason you would want to go to Kyle Hart except if you just needed to cram in some expensive bats. But do you see any potential for him to be the Paul Blackburn of the day?
I mean, I think price-wise, I would get it. I have some concerns here because this Tampa Bay lineup really stacked against lefties. And, some of these guys, too, like Yoshi Tsutsugo is a guy who's not had a large sample size here versus lefties in MLB, but he's clearly hit lefties a lot better than he's hit righties so far. So I think that this Tampa Bay stack appeals to me a lot more. I guess despite some chalky ownership for them as well, they're going to be about as owned as Philadelphia. It seems like actually Tampa Bay and Philadelphia will be the top 2 owned stacks of the day by a pretty decent margin. Let me just double check with the top stacks tool. But yeah, I don't see it for Kyle Hart other than, if you're playing 150, I could see getting there just for the sake of trying to get something going in a different way, and Hart's not going to be that owned. So I think, 11% ownership for him, that's certainly seems like more than enough to get out of Kyle Hart for me. The hitting though, the prices on Tampa Bay, I do not get even a little bit. Honestly, it's a nice hitting park for them, definitely a park upgrade playing in Boston. And these guys really a lot of power against the lefty. Brousseau has got a monster ISO. 290 for him going back to last year. Jose Martinez. Everybody in this lineup besides, I guess, Manuel Margot hits lefties really well. And Zunino, I guess, has some struggles against lefty too, but, he's always got the pop to make something happen. I love this Tampa Bay stack. I mean, I think Tampa Bay and Philly clearly the top stacks of the day, though the ownership will be there, as I mentioned. So the hitting for me, Alex, looks very important, but the value pricing on these guys, I mean, what do you do here? Because they look great. And if Hart isn't a great pitcher or, a guy who's going to have anything great coming in, they can really blow him up in a big way.
Yeah, you got like the situation where they're facing a below average pitcher in a great park. So, I mean, the prices, as you're mentioning, across the industry are like dirt cheap. So I don't understand where those prices came from. That could be a spot where maybe you're like, well, everyone's going to hammer these Rays bats and maybe like do a fade because of that. Because let's see, their team total is about 5.7. It's a little bit lower than Philadelphia, but they're the road team, so that's an advantage. So they're the best stack on the day. They're really cheap. There just really aren't any like stud pitchers to pay up for those. So I'm not sure like the fact that they're cheap makes a huge difference.
No, it seems fair. And it does, according to the top stacks tool, they are going to be a bit higher owned than their chance of being the top stack. And Alex, we talked about the other day, some of the wrinkles and how you approach the top stacks tool where, if a team is cheap enough and they're a top stack, you're sometimes willing to take that stab because it can open some things up for you, even if they are going to be perhaps, a little bit overowned relative to the chances of being a top stack. But how would you handle it on a short slate like this today where they are cheap, but there really isn't anybody to pay up for that you need to go to somebody that cheap for or to a team that cheap for? Like, how do you approach this today on a short slate where Tampa Bay and Philly seem a cut above all the other stacks, but also they're going to be owned in a way that makes it uncomfortable?
I think that the fact that it's a 5-game slate really influences this decision because that kind of enhances the chance that one of these weaker stacks will be the highest scoring of the day. In fact, the lowest percentage chance I have on my top stack tool today is 6.6%, which is for Milwaukee and Boston. They're tied. Honestly, this is a really hard slate to break down because it doesn't look like any particular team is going to be low owned, to the point where they're really contrarian. So honestly, the strategy today that's best isn't really evident to me from looking at this offhand, but we do know that Tampa Bay is just they're jumping out completely. So that is a little bit of a red flag to me because it's if we love them, everyone else is gonna love them too. So I think it's just the day where you gotta focus on the overall lineup construction where you have a couple of players that may be low owned or a stack that's low owned, and then you pair them with one of these better stacks like Philadelphia or Tampa because it's gonna be hard to fade them.
And I would say too, if we talk about the weather risks of that Philly game, I think in that respect of, there's no weather risks in Boston, at least unless there's something I'm not seeing. Tampa Bay, I feel like in that perspective is going to be a bit safer to go to just because they're going to be there. And I guess for me, I do see a couple ways you get different. I mean, if you want to go to Manuel Margot, he's not a great power guy, but certainly capable of adding some speed and maybe some stolen base upside and, a competent enough hitter to get to at under 10% ownership. And again, Yoshi Tsugo, I think, is one guy that I would also put in as a difference maker. Under 10% for him, 2,900 and dual position eligibility, I feel like does, speak to me for DraftKings. But Alex, do you agree here that might be the way to get different? It's just going down the order as often is the way to get different in these stacks.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely is a good way. It's usually not a good idea to just stack 1 through 5 for a lineup, and because all the teams have 9 batters now in the player pool, I think that increases the number of possible combinations. So getting creative with that is one way to differentiate. So I think that's a good idea.
Fadi in the YouTube chat, and I'm sorry if it's Fady, though Fady would be more appropriate for DFS, but I'll assume it's Fadi. Philadelphia bats can't be the top stack at all if the game is going to be postponed. I guess, Alex, it's worth just talking very briefly about the process here. We talk about weather, we talk about the risk. You have your postponement risk built into the MLB projections where people can pull that themselves, but you really have to take these slates at face value in the hopes that they go off, right, when you're playing these?
So every situation is a little different. So on a 4-game slate, there's tremendous value where if you fade this game and it doesn't happen, you're going to be far more likely to win than the reverse, where if you fade the game and it does happen, you still are in a decent position to win. Obviously, if you have any player from this game and it doesn't happen, you're screwed. Where if it does happen, it doesn't necessarily have a much higher chance of winning. So the risk reward isn't completely balanced in that respect. The one thing about this particular situation is there are no surprises here. So they don't have fans that are going and buying concessions anymore. So I'm thinking that maybe they're more likely to just call the game before 4 p.m. if they're planning to call it. If it starts in a delay, maybe that means they're planning to play it. So that logic often fails us. But I mean, I guess we'll have to make another call later at the end of the show to really see what the trends are looking like.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that, and you should be keeping an eye on it yourself as well. Again, the lock is going to be at 1 p.m. West Coast time, 4 p.m. East Coast time, or 4:05. So make sure you're watching the weather as you get closer there. Definitely can change in the next hour or so, or can be a little bit different. And as Alex mentioned, we'll circle back on it and talk about it again. This Boston side, though, Tyler Glass now going against them. A guy who's sort of been up and down in terms of his performance this year, where the strikeout rate's been tremendous. It's actually up to 37% after, the limited sample size he's had so far, having faced 51 guys. Going back to last year, he's got a 34% K rate. That looks good. But he's been getting hit pretty hard so far. Maybe a bit unlucky with a 290 BABIP for him, but the barreled ball rate for him, I was kind of surprised to see this morning. He's been getting hit pretty hard, 12.5% of the time. Guys laying the barrel of the bat on there. The hard hit rate for him has also been at 50%. I would think these things are going to come down, but the 1.5 whip, the home run rate, all this stuff scares me a little bit. It's this slate, though, and we talked about the slate being mostly garbage, so I don't have any issue with Glass now relative to the slate, but do you have any cause for concern here with Glass now, or is it just he's gotten a bit unlucky amidst this monster K rate that he's had?
Yeah, the K rate's really the one thing that I'm looking at. Like, how good of a pitcher they are is definitely secondary. And he's been pitching about 80 pitches a game. As you mentioned, his Ks have been off the hook, like 37%. So that's enough for me. And if we look at the Vegas odds, that tells a good story too, where Boston is projected for 4.4 runs, below average, even though it's a good park. So not a lock play, but someone that I do feel confident in Glass now.
Relative to that too, I mean, based on Glass now, I would say being one of few pitchers of really substantial quality here, there's going to be some ownership for him. So that does mean that there may be opportunity for the Boston stack to be leverage against him, especially given the fact that, he has given up some production so far this year, more than you would certainly expect from Glass now based upon that monster K rate we talked about. Again, 37%, a gigantic number, a Garrett Cole type number from last year. But Boston does have these hitters who can do damage. Obviously, Devers going to have a bit of an advantage going from the left side of the plate, theoretically. JD, tons of power as well. Mitch Moreland. The Red Sox stack, though, Alex, I don't love it on paper, but I guess maybe that's the reason you go there. These guys won't be owned, and we know the potential that they have overall. So how do you feel about this Boston stack without really any ownership going to anybody besides, I guess, JD and Verdugo?
Yeah, I mean, Darvish has been good this year, so that's definitely a reason to be concerned about the Boston stack. And his xFIP has been 3.16. Last year, 3.39. So he's been above average. Strikeouts haven't been great this year at 25%, but not a guy you love to target. So then it comes down to the ownership. Like, is the risk worth the reward? And on today's slate, we have Boston.
Did you go to Darvish? What? Am I having a stroke?
Oh, sorry. Is that the wrong game?
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, the Glass now. I was.
The two sports at once. We finally have seen one of your weaknesses after all years of DFS.
Sorry, I was looking at this projection for Darvish and tinkering with it, so I got off track. But that's updated in case you're interested. But Glass now, yeah, he's if I remember right, he doesn't have great command. In fact, his walks per 9 have been 6 over 3 starts this year. So that is a reason why maybe he would get out of the game quicker, and that would be good for your Boston stack. But still, they're one of the weaker projected teams of the day, and their ownership is kind of in the middle of the pack. So the other thing I don't like is that they're a home team, and that just hurts the upside a tiny bit.
Yeah, I mean, not a great matchup on paper. Certainly a team, if you happen to get them and you're putting in a bunch of lineups, I don't hate it. But yeah, I agree. On paper, it really doesn't seem like a ton of love here, a reason to love Boston going against Glass now, even with the bad results that he's gotten so far this year. Other than that, again, monster K rate. And somebody in the chat too, I'm sorry, I just lost who it was, saying that the 37% K rate doesn't seem sustainable. You're right, that's not sustainable, but he does have a 34% K rate going back to last year. So it's not like it's that big of a jump. Certainly going to level out a bit more, but it's not like a guy who's at a 22% K rate going to 37. Like, the regression is not going to be as severe as you might think normally. Let's do the dong picks right now, and then we'll get to our final 3 games. So help us out, guys. Hit the like button, because we need it for the dong picks. It's been a struggle so far. And also, I guess one sad thing that I just realized talking now, this is my last dong pick that I'm going to be given on this show. So tomorrow, if you haven't been in the loop, tomorrow my final show, doing an NBA Live Before Lock with Josh, followed by a live after lock where we'll have a bunch of our Awesemo crew coming to hang out, talk about DFS, talk about life, talk about my run here. So very appreciative to have that opportunity to hang out with a bunch of guys that I've enjoyed doing shows with. But I got to get this dong pick right, I think, before this all ends. I'm going to go Yoshi. I'm going to go Yoshi Tsutsugo. I feel like he's the dude that has popped up to me a lot today. I want him to do well. I always pick Yoshi in Mario Party. I think all these things check out for me. So Yoshi Tsutsugo, step on down. Alex, who's your pick?
I'm just gonna find one guy that has a big ISO because that's what this is really all about. And I see that let's go with Schwarber. I think that it's a lefty-lefty matchup, and that worked out for me that last time. Of course, normally a really bad sign for power. I think left-handed bats have like 3/4 as many extra base hits versus left-handed pitchers as versus right-handed. But he's got the best ISO on the Cubs team, so I'm hoping that maybe Brett Anderson will get out of the game, and then we'll get a Schwarber dong.
There you go. So Kyle Schwarber for Alex. It is Yoshi for me, and your old pal E-Mac coming in to troll me with a pick of a fellow Ray, Hunter Renfroe, did not come through for him in terms of the home run picks. That's chalk the other day, but should be highly owned again with his cheap price, and certainly has the power numbers to do some damage against Kyle Hart. 290 ISO for Hunter Renfroe. So another quality Tampa Bay Ray here who can blow that up. Help us out, guys. Again, hit that like button because we need some support here. And, Josh is going to be giving you some love too to get some likes. So get your like in now before Josh really shames you into doing it. But there's people asking where I'm going. I'll talk about it on tomorrow's show. So it's about Awesemo for the next 2 days. So, but tomorrow we'll talk about my next stop and some more details there. Let's get into this next game. Actually, let's jump to the Cubs game since you talked about Kyle Schwarber. Brett Anderson going against the Cubs in that spot. 4.9 implied runs for Chicago. Brett Anderson, not a great pitcher in any way, but does keep the ball down fairly well. So I guess that could be one reason that could cause problems for the Cubs. On the other side, we have Yu Darvish, a guy who Alex was talking about inadvertently a second ago, but is an important pitcher to know on today's slate. Strikeouts haven't been there for him this year, but definitely seems due for some positive regression there. He's going to be facing a lineup that currently projects to have 5 guys above league average in strikeout rate, but also some danger with, of course, Christian Yelich and his track record of having great success against righties, and some of these other guys too. Keston Hiura really has mashed righties as well. Let's go to the Milwaukee side first, because Yu Darvish is an important play to consider. If you were going to pay up a pitcher, he's probably the guy you're paying up for today. The numbers for him have looked great. Strikeouts, as Alex mentioned, down a little bit, 24.6% on the year. Going back to last season, a 31% K rate. I certainly like you. I certainly like you, Alex, but I also like Yu Darvish.
Well, thank you, Chris. Yu Darvish. Thanks a lot.
But 3.6 point implied run total for Milwaukee does seem like Vegas not buying into the concept of a power day here for the Brewers. So where are you landing on this equation? The U side going to be 46% projected ownership for him. I would be there. I think I really don't have an issue with Yu Darvish on this slate. And if I get to Darvish and Glass now, I think I'm pretty comfortable with that approach as well.
Yeah, I think Darvish really stands out as the best overall pitcher because he, although his strikeouts have been down this year a little bit, still 25% is considerably above average. And maybe we could expect that to be a little bit of variance like you suggested. Milwaukee team, it looks about average for getting Ks based on their lineup today. So that is a neutral factor. And I think that this Glass now has kind of a pitch cap that Darvish doesn't have, and that's going to be the difference. So I think Darvish is a really nice play. The only thing is he's going to be the highest owned, like you were mentioning. So he's a guy that if you want to pick then maybe you go a little bit more contrarian with the rest of your lineup. Don't just cram in Tampa Bay stacks.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And we also have to give a shout out to Yu Darvish for his great Netflix show, You. I think that's really one of the other contributions that he's had. Clearly the creator and writer. That's the way that I would go with that.
I was wondering what that was based off of, but now we know it's Yu Darvish.
It's his life story. It's his autobiography. Yeah. He just stalks women and murders them, I think is the way that it goes. Got a question here in the chat, and this is something I'm curious to hear your thoughts about. Actually, two things that are worth pointing out. The wind blowing in pretty heavily at Wrigley, 8 miles per hour. So certainly going to give a bit of a boost to the pitching aspects there rather than the hitting. But also people are talking about the Cubs bullpen. They have not looked good. And I know you have some specific thoughts about bullpens and maybe not chasing some of the numbers that a bullpen may have for different reasons. So give me your thoughts on the weather and also the bullpen and people pointing out that they've been really bad overall this year.
So with the weather, like of course Wrigley is probably the number one stadium where you have to account for the weather. And the fact that the wind's blowing in is definitely going to be a good factor. The one thing I'd caution against is like accounting for that more than once, where like that's if you're using Vegas data, like this over under of 8.5, that's definitely taking fully into account the weather conditions. So that's kind of my starting point. So I don't worry as much about the weather. But yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely a reason why the over-under is pretty low today. It just stinks because Brett Anderson is on the other side, and he doesn't really get great strikeouts, so can't really take fully advantage of that.
Also, we're going to talk about the hitters in a second. We want to give a quick update here because El Negro Loco's Dong picks have been probably the best amongst all of us, though. T. McBee right there with him. But he did put in that he wants to go to Nick Castellanos. So there you go. If you want to tail some of El Negro Loco's picks, always a good move here. One of the sharper guys we have. Check out his news blogs as well at Awesemo.com, where he does a great job keeping all the updates in addition to all the Slack messages he puts in. Make sure everybody knows all the important injury items and things that have to be aware of on a slate. The hitting here, Alex, going to have some ownership for Christian Yelich, as you might expect. He's a monster hitter. We know the upside there, even in some spots that are adverse conditions. Really not much ownership for anybody else on this Brewers stack, but there is potential here, and you are going against the highest owned pitcher, so maybe some potential for leverage if you're willing to ignore the very low team total and the win factors that we talked about earlier. So where would you land with a Brewers stack? Because it does seem like the conditions are not going to favor the hitting at all today. And the ownership is there enough for Yelich in particular that I don't know that I would get into Milwaukee, even if I were playing a bunch of lineups.
Yeah, I think that the Brewers stack definitely is one of the weaker ones today. So then it just all comes down to ownership. As you mentioned, Christian Yelich has pretty high ownership, but that's going to inflate what it shows on the top stack percentage because that's the average between the 9 batters. So their ownership is 6.7. Maybe that means that about 4% ownership for the stack and then just a bunch of Christian Yelich one-offs. So maybe there's a tiny bit of advantage you can get there, but I don't really think that in general picking like the weakest stack of the day is a good strategy.
No, it seems fair. And again, 20% plus ownership projected for Christian Yelich. So going to be a fairly chalky option, even on a 5-game slate. So keep that in mind. The Cubs side of the equation, going against Brett Anderson. Brett Anderson, not a good pitcher by any stretch. In terms of strikeout rate, an actively bad pitcher, a 12% K rate going back to last year over a very large sample size. That number has been pretty steady. One thing he does do well, though, he does not give up a lot of home runs, a 2.7% home run rate going back to last year. This year, same thing, 2.9% right with league average. Fly ball rate for him also pretty low, 19% fly ball rate. So the wind's going to help him out. The lack of fly balls is going to help him out. I still think clearly I'd rather go to Yu Darvish. I'd rather go to Tyler Glasnow with the value that's on the slate for hitters. But I don't think Brett Anderson, I think he would be the guy I would say is the Paul Blackburn of the night just because he stinks. But if he keeps the ball down and does, do just mediocre Brett Anderson type things, he can limit a Cub stack that's going to have some decent ownership on them. And, a run total that does look decent. But the weather, I think, will maybe keep that ball in the park a bit better. So where do you land on Brett Anderson, and would you have any exposure given that he's going to be 1% owned?
I don't necessarily hate Brett Anderson because let me pull up his pitch count because obviously if you're picking a bad pitcher for strikeouts, you're really looking for a big pitch count. And he hasn't gone above 68 pitches this season so far. So really it's the worst of both worlds where he's unlikely to go deep And then he also doesn't get a lot of strikeouts. So I'm actually going to bump down my projection. Normally I'd be doing that like an hour and a half before lock, like we are on the show. So just double checking all these numbers, but that's going to make Brett Anderson look pretty bad, I'd say, just because no confidence in going deep or strikeouts.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was just trying to make a case for him. He had, going back to last year, gone pretty deep into games with 5.5 innings pitched per start. But yeah, that pitch count this year has not looked good, and he's not good. So really, the value for a crappy pitcher like Alex mentioned, if he doesn't get strikeouts, is just him being able to stay in the game and not give up damage. And even if Brett Anderson doesn't give up the damage, like if he goes 3 innings and gives you no strikeouts, you are going to be in a bad spot. So that would be a reason to not go to Brett Anderson. So take that back, even though that's more of a thought exercise than anything. The Cubs, though, Alex, again, we talked about the wind and the team total here, 4.9 implied runs, not great by any stretch. But you do have guys here who have a lot of success against lefties. Chris Bryant's always been a lefty masher, 319 ISO, hitting in the leadoff spot as well. Avi Baez, 322 ISO versus lefties. Wilson Contreras, a good catcher option. These guys are reasonably priced, though that wind is a bit of a concern. 3-man stacks look like they'll be more in fashion here than the 5-man stacks. But where do you feel, or where do you land about the Cubs here, given some of the conditions that we talked about?
I like the Cubs as kind of a contrarian play because the heart of the order is priced up a decent amount. So on DraftKings and FanDuel, they're kind of not going to pop nearly as much on optimizers as some other teams like Tampa Bay. And we know they have a lot of talent. As far as the wind, game time is at 5:15, 6:15 Eastern. So your confidence level in the wind prediction at this point probably isn't quite as high. So I think that the Cubs are a fine stack to target today as kind of a contrarian play.
All right, let's keep going through here. We got 2 more games to touch on. Filling the hell out of this hour, so good job by us. Help us out, guys. Hit that like button. Again, NBA Live Before Lock coming up next. Josh and Lofty taking you through to this actually very important bunch of games for the Western Conference playing teams and some other teams, of course, not caring very much, but they'll walk you through all of that coming up in just 20 minutes. Let's talk about Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. Cincinnati, a nice 5.3 implied run total for them. The park there certainly been one that plays a little better for power over the last few years. Going against Trevor Williams, also not a bad thing either, given the fact that he gives up some righty power in particular. 227 ISO to that side of the plate, 211 to lefties. Lots of room here for Cincinnati to be interesting and a bit lower owned than some of the other stacks we talked about up top. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, though, not many guys who strike out above average. So Anthony DeSclafani maybe has a tough time there as a guy who doesn't have a big K rate anyway, but a team that doesn't have really much to worry about in terms of the hitters. Some guys here, maybe a little danger for Josh Bell. Brian Reynolds, I think a competent hitter generally, though not a guy with a ton of pop. I think DeSclafani actually maybe a little more of what I talked about with Brett Anderson, where he can go deeper into games. He's looked good on the year. He's probably not going to get a lot of strikeouts with that 21% K rate, 24% going back to last year. I don't love DeSclafani, but I could see getting there more than I could this Pittsburgh stack. But how do you feel about it, Alex?
Yeah, I think on today's slate, we got to really look at some guys we might not normally pick. And DeSclafani, he not a good price at 8,200 on DraftKings, 7,100 FanDuel. 42 on Yahoo, is that right? That seems ridiculous. Anyway, he is a guy that has been getting good strikeout numbers though, so that's nice. And it's really the matchup that's the negative factor here, because Pittsburgh, as you mentioned, they're not a terrific lineup, but they strike out about 15% less than your average team, and that is enough of a negative to make him not stand out as much as some of the other guys like Yu Darvish.
Yeah, Adam Frazier, Kevin Newman up top, 2 guys. Newman at 13% strikeout rate, Frazier at 12%. These are very low numbers for guys striking out. And again, just only 2 guys over league average in terms of strikeouts in that lineup that's been confirmed. So a bit of a weird situation for Pittsburgh. Probably not a ton of upside for them as a stack. Though somebody in the chat asked, saying that Josh Bell is his dong call of the day. Any interest at all here for a Pittsburgh maybe mini stack? Because Josh Bell does grade out pretty well going against a righty. So I get where he's coming from, but I wouldn't get there, but I'm just asking for the sake of argument.
Yeah, I like Josh Bell, especially on DraftKings. I think this team is going to go a little under-owned because they are below that two points per dollar threshold that you're looking for. So that is a contrarian team that you can go to in Pittsburgh. And Josh Bell does have good power, so he's fine as a one-off that maybe is the anti-optimizer play.
The Cincinnati side here would be the one that I'd be more intrigued by, though they are going to be owned a bit more, especially guys like Eugenio Suarez and Nick Castellanos. These guys project well, and they should have about 20% ownership on DraftKings. A little bit less for some of the other guys here. Shogo Akiyama has not shown much power-wise for him in the leadoff spot, but certainly a nice price, $3K on DraftKings, so about minimum there. And, I don't think Trevor Williams offers much in terms of potential. So I would say I'm not going to get any Trevor Williams in the lineups I'll put in, but let's talk about him real fast here, Alex. Do you see Trevor Williams having any potential here? A guy who under league average in terms of strikeout rate, but maybe cheap enough to get into the mix?
Yeah, I think he is well priced enough that you got to consider him at 5,800. A guy that could go deep in the game, and the matchup's bad. His strikeout numbers aren't good, but the price seems right. So, because if you're optimizing, you're going to be funneled into Tampa Bay and Yu Darvish. I think that maybe taking a look at Trevor Williams isn't crazy.
Okay, that's fair. I would personally favor the stack over it, and I'm curious your thoughts here if there's anybody who particularly jumps out to you. Again, Castellanos and Suarez are going to be very highly owned, two guys who have a nice track record of power, though. Suarez to start the year has looked really bad, whereas Castellanos, kind of the exact opposite, has been breaking to start the year. 409 ISO for Castellanos so far in 2020, 131 ISO for Suarez. Our boy Jake Hari must be crestfallen after Eugenio has been one of his guys for so long. But the Cincinnati stack, Alex, 5.3 implied runs for them, but appropriately owned, it seems. Is there any, where do you land with this, I guess, relative to the field? Because it's a slate that I imagine you'll get some of them, but are they a priority, or is there maybe a 3-man stack a priority? Like, how are you viewing this?
I think that they're about average. The team total 5.2 is pretty good. The prices aren't great. I did hear people talking about how on FanDuel you can pretty much take whatever batters you want, though, and that appears to be true today because Cincinnati is pretty cheap. So I think that as far as talent, they're not the greatest team, about average in power, a little bit better at getting on base than your average team. And then the pitcher, Trevor Williams, although I kind of like him as a contrarian play, he's definitely not someone to avoid targeting stacks against. So I think you're right to be interested in the Reds here.
Question in the chat, and actually this is something that I was trying to find a way to ask about, but Josh mentioned it before the show we came on, and Key W in the chat, or KLW saying, Alex, we saw you won the 50G with no stack, but rather 2-1-1-1-1-1-1. Is this the new play, or was that an accident and you landing on that?
It was somewhere in between those two, because what happened is I was scrambling last night to try to finish my MLB lineups because I was running about like 10 or 15 minutes behind my normal process. So it's like, this crunch will probably run a lot faster if I don't have stacking. So one of my crunches had no stacks, but then I have a way to sort it out, all my lineups, and figure out which are the best ones. That based on ownership, projections, etc., stacking. And even though there was no stacking, it popped up towards the top of my list, so it made about 150. So it was a lot of luck and a little bit of skill.
There you go. So yeah, it has not changed your approach, though, to be clear. You're not all of a sudden a 2-1-1-1-1-1. You're not going binary mode for your stacks moving forward.
Well, actually, like, it just showed to me maybe I need to look into this more, having that big outlier performance. So I might look into some more not stack lineups. But the one thing I'll say about it is that it's a lot more risky strategy, because the further you differentiate from stacking, it becomes a lot harder to identify what the best lineups are. So stacking is definitely a safe way to make really good lineups. And there may be some lineups out there that aren't stacked that are good as well, but it will be a lot harder to figure out what the right construction is.
I mean, like this might be a stupid analogy or maybe a very obvious one, but it's kind of like the equivalent of finding 8 different needles in a haystack versus finding like a pack of needles in a haystack. Seems like how I would think of it.
I like it, man. Yeah, that's pretty nice.
Because I mean, you see these tournaments. I mean, these guys happen. These wins happen sometimes for people where you have the novice DFS player who comes in, doesn't understand stacking and wins. But yeah, like there's a reason why. Normally, it's not Alex, but there's a reason why you would have the approach you do of going 5-3, 5-2, 4-3. Like there's that's usually the way it's going to go. But who knows? Maybe you've invented a new game.
Maybe, yeah. I just stumbled upon something on accident that works, I guess. But here's the thing: is like one of the problems is your lineups when you don't stack, you don't put those constraints on your lineup. They're going to look a lot better as far as projection. So it's all about a matter of balancing that trade-off as well as the ownership.
And our last game we'll talk about here, maybe some guys to 2-1-1-1-1-1-1 stack in this one, but San Diego and the Dodgers, not a great implied run total for San Diego going against Jose Urias, a guy who is, I don't know, sort of hard to get a read on given the fact that he's gone from opener to bullpen guy to starting guy. He's really moving all over the place. Still a pitcher, though, going back to last season, a 25% K rate for him, rounding up a bit there. This year has not quite had it as well, getting hit pretty hard. 53% hard hit rate for him, 16% K rate. So maybe something a little off with him here. But the projection, Alex, looks decent relative to a very high salary for him, actually. At 30% ownership, I don't know that I would love Urias very much today, but where do you land with him going against the Padres team, who does have a low 3.8 point implied run total?
Yeah, I mean, Urias is a great pitcher and a remarkable talent. And the Dodgers always have a ton of guys like this where they'll just kind of run them out 4 to 5 innings, and then they never are quite as good as like what you'd like. And compared to Darvish, that's a big negative, especially the Padres are not an easy matchup. So I think he definitely stands out as a rung below Darvish, in my opinion. But we saw with Tony Gonsolin last night, I mean, despite getting pulled at 4 and 2 innings, he put up like 20 DK points. So that can get it done for sure.
Yeah, so maybe some reason there. And Urias, certainly a price point pivot to Tyler Glass now, but it does seem, I mean, wait, Urias is protected for more ownership than Glass now? That seems, I would rather have Glass now a lot, I think. So I don't know. I'm surprised by that one, but maybe it'll change a little bit closer to lock. But just something to keep in mind there. Close price points on some of the sites. San Diego stack, though, Fernando Tatis has been unbelievable. I mean, even compared to last year, where he started probably better than people realize. Going back to last year, hitting versus lefties, only had 100 at-bats versus lefties going back to the beginning of last season, but he's at a 320 ISO. Machado also really done some damage against lefties over the last year plus, 373 ISO for him. We do have guys who can hit pretty well behind them as well. Tommy Pham, always a guy who can pop an upside day. Ty France has hit lefties shockingly well, at least for power. Will Myers, there are some ways to go against Urias here for San Diego. So do you see any San Diego stacks for yourself with really only Tatis and Machado expected to have ownership?
I think, I mean, today you can make a case for pretty much anyone. So I'm very interested to see which lineups kind of pop to the top for me, but it'll probably be a mix of a lot of different guys. The nice thing with the Padres is they have a really good lineup as far as power. Pretty much everyone could hit a homer in the projected lineup. So I think that they stand out. But the matchup stinks because LA is a pitcher's park, and they're facing above average starting pitcher. So if they're contrarian, I think you can go to them. But I don't think they're going to be super contrarian. They're going to be kind of popular, I'd have to guess. But we see that with every team where the expectations are somewhat in line with their chance of success.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. And definitely a lot of people, I think, are aware of Tatis having this run that he's been on. And that can be a time to start to move away, even though He's really, he's already better than his dad by a wide margin, I think, at least when I recall of him. So kudos to him. Always good to see that the son start to usurp the dad rather than the inverse. Always a bummer, I feel like, when the famous dad's kid is like terrible. I don't know. I like to see the opposite. This Dodgers side, though, Chris Paddock, a guy who has been pretty good overall. Maybe not the highest upside pitcher relative to K rate so far this year, only a 24% K rate compared to 26.5% going back to last season. In this Dodgers lineup, we know at this point a lot of guys who can really ruin a day for a pitcher, even if they have their stuff looking good. Paddock also getting hit pretty hard so far to start the year, 48% hard contact rate, 11% barreled ball rate. I don't see myself getting to Paddock much if I were playing more lineups. Again, I'm focusing a little more on my volume of NBA today, but Paddock, I do think is fine. Like, I don't have an issue with him, kind of like Urias as well, but I don't see him being in the same tier as some of the guys we talked about earlier with you and Glass now. So where are you landing with Paddock, and does he seem worth the 23% ownership we have for him?
I mean, a good pitcher, but the matchup versus the Dodgers is about as bad as they come. So I think that the only thing that makes him kind of a play today is just the lack of other plays that are any good either. Besides Darvish, everyone has these red flags. So I don't hate going to Paddock just because you need another pitcher after you need at least two pitchers. I mean, and only one that really stands out as safe today, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And it's not a bad price point for Paddock, a guy who's, I think, been around 10K before in the past. Certainly a bit of a discount going against the Dodgers, and the Dodgers, we know the risk, but this projected line for the Dodgers, they definitely have better ones going against a righty that they could put out there. So I would say keep your eyes on that lineup too and what comes out. But let's talk about the Dodgers really fast. Not projected for a ton of ownership. Paddock is a guy who I think engenders some degree of respect with a one whip both this year and going back to last year. He does mostly keep that damage to a minimum. But the Dodgers are, again, a team who can blow up anybody. So a not-owned Dodgers team, Alex, with a 4.7 point implied run total, despite a pitcher's park. How do you land with them and your exposures?
Well, not the best day to target them, certainly. And then it comes down to the ownership. So let me pull up my top stack tool because that's kind of my go-to reference point. 7% ownership and an 8.7% chance of being the top stack. I think this one is DK only, if I remember right. So on DK, they're pretty expensive, and that's going to drive ownership away. So I think there is some advantage to maybe punting both pitchers and taking an overpriced Dodgers stack.
All right, so there you go. So that's the slate for everybody. So we said we were going to circle back to the weather in Philadelphia. And Alex, curious your thoughts here as we head out of this live before lock and make some room here for NBA in the next few minutes. Do you have any thoughts now about the weather, given the chance to look at it? And also, we did get a Phillies lineup as well. No Rhys Hoskins in the mix. Alec Boehm in the mix, who not a person I prepared for. But how are you feeling about Philadelphia's weather and I guess also the change to their lineup?
I think that let me make sure I got this lineup in here. Okay, we're good. I think that the weather, it's about where we left off, where there's going to be rain for a couple hours after lock, at least. And it will predictably fade out by the evening. I feel like because the logistics are a factor here with them having to make up they don't have another series versus Baltimore. And another factor that I didn't mention earlier is there's only a 2-hour drive between Philadelphia and Baltimore, and I assume they drove because they're going to do that more this season. So it doesn't seem like they'd postpone it to me, but I think there is a risk. Maybe the thing is, I would think they would postpone it before lock if they're going to postpone it. I could be wrong, but I feel comfortable that if this game does not get postponed, having exposure to it.
Yeah. And also, I'm looking up Alec Boehm real fast, his minors numbers. Does seem like he's had some decent pop this year. He's got a 213 ISO, it looks like, for his minor stints in 2019. Overall in his career, a little bit lower. Yeah, I mean, Alex, how do you handle a guy like Boehm who's coming into a Philadelphia lineup that we just talked about loving? And it does seem like the Philadelphia stack got a lot worse by putting in Segura in the 2-hole and then Boehm in this mix ahead of Jay Bruce.
Yeah, let me look up his minor stats because I I don't know him that well. Okay, so 2019 he was in AA, 231 ISO, 344 on base. So he seems like a power hitter that doesn't have great contact or like a really inconsistent power hitter. So I think that that is definitely a guy that you can have as part of a stack just because they have the upside to hit homers, but I don't expect him to be like a very good batter, just about below average.
And I had this real fast question before we yield to the NBA guys in a second here. Segura and Bohm look like they're both third basemen on DraftKings from what I can see. Would you go Segura or Bohm if you had to choose here to round out that 5-man stack or even a 3-man stack for Philadelphia?
Segura or Bohm, you said?
Yeah, because they're both third basemen on DK.
Oh yeah, that definitely makes the Philly stack more interesting because that's going to drive down ownership if there's less ways that you can make the stack. So I think that actually could be a positive where maybe you go to Bohm instead of Segura, and that gives you a little bit of differentiation.
Yeah, so there you go. So keep your eyes on the weather, guys. Again, the lock is in an hour. NBA coming up next. Hit the like button. Tune in tomorrow. NBA Live Before Lock, my last one. Watch that. Subscribe, hit the notification bell. Of course, go to awesemo.com/join. Make sure you're getting the best package for yourself over there. Lots of data, lots of sports still going on. Really, all the sports. PGA is going off right now, too. And God, I love PGA so much. So much fun. So make sure you're playing all the sports you can. And last plug here for Yahoo Sports as well. Make sure you are playing over there. Get your YSRPs. $30 on Yahoo Sports rewards points. We call them YSRPs because we're close friends with them here. But we love Yahoo, and use the promo code Awesemo at Yahoo to get $30 free with your deposits on there. And get those YSRPs right away. They're just as good as cash on Yahoo, and they'll help you win. Alex, anything you want to plug before we call it quits?
Thanks everyone for the support, and Chris, make sure to check out Chris's happy hour tomorrow, where we're gonna all hang out after lock for NBA, so that'll be fun.
Yes, and you can put your betting odds on me crying. I have it at about, I think it might be a minus number, but I'm going to say plus 170 right now for me tearing up a little during it. But watch tomorrow, subscribe to the notification bell, and stay tuned on this stream. Josh and Laffy coming up next, talking NBA, and they'll be taking you through all that slate. So hit that like button, watch these guys, and we'll see you guys again soon. Good luck.
Hey-o. Here we go. NBA live before lock. It only took me like 4 minutes to get this flipped over. I'm happy about it.
It's a good job.
We've got some important basketball games coming up, and we are going to dig into it. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Dave Loughran. You've heard him expound some thoughts on the NBA already once today. You've heard mine as well if you checked out the Contenders video. At least I hope you did. Laffy, what's going on?
Should. Nothing, man. I tell you what, just as a pure basketball fan, we should all be really grateful that it shook out like this. Yeah. I mean, nobody ever would have thought that by Thursday, the day before the end of the restart seeding games, that you've got the Blazers, the Grizzlies, the Suns, and the Spurs all in legitimate contention to make this play-in round. It's awesome stuff, man. I can't wait for it. But from a DFS standpoint, it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, at least they buried that garbage Celtics-Wizards game already. They buried that garbage Kings-Lakers game already. And we're getting into it. The games at 4 o'clock. Milwaukee-Memphis, monstrous for Memphis. Dallas-Phoenix, monstrous for Phoenix. Just seeing those games happen simultaneously is huge, and that will dictate the rest of what we've got for today. I'm excited to talk about it at least.
So am I. I'm ready to jump in whenever you are. I wouldn't call them hot takes, but I have some rotational predictions.
Okay.
I'm pretty strong on them lately, so we're going to try and keep batting, 500.
Yeah, look, hey, if you bat 500, you're the best player ever, so that's a decent...
But to be clear, I'm talking about starters sitting, not playing, active, inactive, that type of stuff. Not as much like knowing that a player I've never heard of is going to play 40 minutes. So that, just to back that up a little bit, to clarify, I'm talking about starters who don't have any, that's what I'm talking about.
I got you. Before we get started, there are 1,000 people in here right now and 134 likes.
Here we go.
Spags and Alex did a shit job of getting likes in the hour before that. So let's blow them out of the water. I want to just double them up right now. It's at 100 and change. Double that up. Go to 260 and change. That's what we need right away. We'll deal with the logistics later, but hit that thumbs up. It really does help us a ton. We have content constantly throughout the day. So subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when all of our content is live. We do have another show coming up later today, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be Jason Floyd, Pete the Heat Rogers breaking down this Saturday's UFC pay-per-view, which is massive. I wish that you and I could do like 15 minutes on that right about now, but we've got basketball to talk about. Thanks to the presenting sponsor of this show, SuperDraft. Love it. We'll hit on some multipliers as we go through. But if you want to sign up at SuperDraft, try to get in on this slate. Use the promo code Awesemo10, AWESEMO10. Get yourself $10 on your first deposit of 10 or more. Or if you want to get crazy, deposit $100 or more, and you can get 20 free dollars. Go to the App Store, download the app, superdraft.io. No limits, more winning. Okay, what's your biggest story right now? We know that Kristaps Porzingis is officially out. That came out about 20 minutes ago. Elie Kobo in, Aaron Baines in. I expected Porzingis to be out all day, so nothing really crazy to me. Where's your head at for these 4 o'clock games? Because I think we should start there.
So, Josh, I think that Middleton and Bledsoe are going to be active, and I don't think they're going to play.
Okay. That makes I understand where you're going with that. You can only list so many people inactive. Some people just have to be active even if they aren't. So I assume that's where you're going with this.
And another thing though, this would not be unprecedented. Like we have Budenholzer's done this before.
Yeah.
Budenholzer's done this before where the starting lineup comes out 10 minutes beforehand, 15 minutes or whatever. It wasn't supposed to be 30 minutes now or something, or is that just inactives? I don't know. But Budenholzer's done this on more than one occasion where players end up, especially on games where like Giannis has been out, maybe not a big game, they're trying to rest guys, where they're active. So it'll say they're playing or say they're active, but then they never end up playing. It didn't happen that long ago. It seems like one of those situations where like maybe they are coming in, and this is speculation, but like for an emergency purposes, but don't play. I can't let me put it to you this way. I can't wrap my head around the point of Middleton or Bledsoe really playing in this game, unless it's just to keep them fresh. But it's a tough one for me to grasp. I wouldn't be surprised if they're active and they sit.
Yeah, or they play like the first quarter and that's it.
Yes.
Something along those lines. Sort of like an NFL preseason game where they play the first team plays right at the beginning. Just because sometimes you just need to eat up time.
Yes, I'd be shocked if they started the second half.
Yeah, I would be shocked if they played a single second in the second half. I mean, just right away, we could look at it like this. The Memphis Grizzlies are 3.5-point favorites today.
Yeah.
There's got to be a lot of starters out for Milwaukee, and it's not just Giannis. Because with Giannis off the floor, the Bucks team is still significantly better than the Memphis Grizzlies on a neutral floor.
Better.
Yeah.
Way better.
Yeah, it's not close.
Jaren Jackson either, so yeah.
So you have to assume that those guys are getting very minimal minutes. Well, then let's just talk about it in that regard. We're talking about Memphis and Milwaukee for right now. We got a ton of time to break this stuff down, and these 4 o'clock games are way more important. What stands out to you from the Milwaukee Bucks if they're not going to be playing Bledsoe and Middleton? Obviously, Giannis out for the headbutt heard around the world. Can we talk about how he should have got more than a game?
Isn't it funny how they're like, hey, you're suspended until the important game starts. Same with Woj, right? Like you're suspended through the end of July. You can come back on July 30th when the season restarts. Like, come on now. It's just completely useless and it's dumb.
What's worse to you, Laureano in baseball or Giannis? Ignore COVID, by the way.
Trust me, I will. I thought I'd get a laugh out of you on that one.
I took a sip of water. It was drenched all my stuff.
Definitely Giannis.
I agree.
I didn't think Laureano did anything wrong. Well, I'm not saying he should be applauded for it. He shouldn't get a plaque. But who was the coach? The coach for the
I know who you mean. I can't remember it right now.
I can't remember his name, but he was not a coach that anyone or a Matt. He was a coach, not a Matt. You wouldn't know his name. He was saying like, "Let's fucking go, let's go" to a player.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I think Giannis's was worse, but
same.
Someone said in chat, I think it's Alex the Great said, Middleton just needs one more shot, one more basket to shoot 50% for the season. It's an interesting stat though. It's not like he just needs one more bucket to hit this many points. It's like he needs to make this basket, because if he shoots 3 and makes 1, well, are we going to keep him out there all game to ramp up 50%?
It only matters if it's in his contract.
Oh, yeah.
Like if it's in his contract that he gets like a $200,000 bonus if he shoots 50%, you best believe he's getting in there to try to get a shot up. If it's just like cosmetic, I don't get the sense that he even knows.
I agree. It is interesting. 49.9%. If that's the case, if any other team like that had nothing to play for, they just let him get to the rim. But Memphis isn't doing that. No. Memphis has no interest in Middleton shooting 50% on the season. So you ask what I expect to happen. The honest to God answer is I don't know, because I want to see what the lineup looks like first, and we should get it soon enough.
Yeah.
But last game, Giannis started, didn't play much. He got ejected early in the second quarter. Middleton didn't play. Bledsoe didn't play. So and George Hill did play. He's out. Ersan Ilyasova is out. I think, and I said this with Greg Ehrenberg on today's morning strategy show, we had a bit of a disagreement there, but I personally think that DJ Wilson, if he starts, is a fantastic value play.
Yeah, as does the boom bust tool, one of the key pieces of tech you can get your hands on if you subscribe to an Awesemo Plus membership. Chances of going big or fully busting. Alex has all of this information at your fingertips. DJ Wilson, 3K on DraftKings today. The second highest boom percentage of the entire slate, only behind Boban Marjanovic.
Oh, loving it. Loving it.
Yeah, I really like DJ Wilson here. I think that he's 3K. So it can only get so bad. If you have a 3K player that doesn't play a single second during the game, that lineup can still cash. You're not going to win a contest in basketball in that scenario. It's not going to stop you from cashing a lineup. You're not dead in the water. If you have an 11K guy that gets a 0, you're probably in trouble.
Yeah, call it a night.
Yeah. So I really like going to someone like DJ Wilson.
So do I. And the thing too is it's not just like this is a small forward that doesn't touch the basketball. We're hoping to get 20 minutes. If Wilson were to get 20 minutes, all right, this goes to your point. I want more than 20 minutes, of course. But if you got 20 minutes at center, where there's just an abundance of easy opportunities where you don't even have to be particularly good, even though I'm a big Joval fan on the other side, I'm all in for that. And another thing is he played 13 minutes in the second half of that last game. He started and played 13 minutes. Ersan Ilyasova's out as well. So what are the options here? Would be the biggest question. It isn't to say that they don't have any, right? There's still a couple of guys that can get run, but having Ersan Ilyasova and Giannis off the floor will definitely throw a bit of a wrench into the works. I think he probably gets at least 25 minutes, Josh.
I think 20 is probably like a floor, barring just straight foul trouble keeping him off.
Okay.
I'd say 22 to 24 is like the most realistic scenario. And it's not out of the realm of possibility that they just let him run because he's not going to see a single second during the playoffs. It doesn't matter what happens to him.
Right.
It's hard not to like him. Again, at 3K. Do you prefer DJ Wilson or Giannis's brother, Thanasis? He is number 3 in the boom bust tool as of right now.
Are you sure they're brothers? I don't know. It's a common name.
Yes, Antetokounmpo, otherwise known as Smith.
It'd be amazing if they weren't actually brothers.
There's 3 of them.
I know.
Costas is hiding somewhere. The Lakers, maybe? I'm almost positive he's the Lakers because I think there was like a quote from Giannis talking about how he's like cheering for the Lakers.
I think he was on the Knicks once too.
I can't remember which one's which. I know which ones are not Giannis. Other than that, I don't know.
Neither can I. Costas was Dallas, and he's on the Lakers now. You're right.
Damn.
I swear one of them was on whatever. Yeah, the Knicks. Okay, I was right in 2015. But I digress, Josh. The whole lineup is weird here. I talked about Frank Mason last game in that if they sit everybody, this guy could actually get some decent run. He only played 22 minutes, but he had a huge game. 19, 5, and 6 with 2 steals. Monster performance. I don't really have much interest in paying $4,300 for him if he's only going to get 20 to 22 minutes. Not huge on that.
Yeah. By the way, there's a 4th one coming too. Alex Antetokounmpo. Not a joke either. Yeah, I'm not kidding either.
And they're related.
Yeah.
Wow. There's not a lot here. This is a Milwaukee team that Budenholzer is always very willing to go very deep into the bench with. And they still are going to have quite a bit of active players. DJ Wilson would be my preferred. And then it kind of falls off a cliff after that. Like I said, though, George Hill is out. So I don't know. Maybe Bledsoe does play. But here's the thing. If Bledsoe doesn't play, right, or if he's active and like Mason starts, Mason becomes an extraordinarily good play. And no, I'm not worried about this being the early game of the slate. It's a spot where these guys could get an abundance of opportunity. And I think Mason, if Bledsoe also is out, he might have free reign in that backcourt.
Yeah, you got to the starting lineups here are going to be incredibly important. I'm a little surprised we haven't seen them yet.
Me too.
40 minutes to go until tip-off. So when we get that, we will be able to firm this up. But for now, I agree, and I'm totally with Alex on the boom percentage. DJ Wilson, the guy that I'm looking for from Milwaukee. Let's hit on the elephant in the room, and I mean that kind of in multiple ways. Boban Marjanovic, boom. So let me just get the details right. A boom is the chance of hitting a 75th percentile performance.
Okay.
Boban does that 69, which is nice, % of the time. Are you going to Boban here? $500 more expensive than DJ Wilson. DJ Wilson 3K. Is it Boban season once again?
Man, it's kind of shocking to me that of all the coaches that are willing to run Boban Marjanovic for big minutes, sometimes it's Rick Carlisle.
Yeah.
You know, he's been on a lot of teams. You very rarely saw anything like that. Now he's coming off of a game where he played 7 minutes, but before that he played 25 minutes. Yeah, look at the front court rotation. No Porzingis, no Dwight Powell, obviously, and obviously no Willie Cauley-Stein. So what does that mean? Well, it means you either go super small or you just go Maxi Kleba and Boban Marjanovic. And I personally think that's what's going to happen here. I think Boban probably gets, I don't know, Maxi's been playing what?
Not
25.
A lot.
What?
Not as much as I think every single day that happens.
Yeah, his minute. Carlisle's tough, man. He's played 34, 22, 30, 27, 21, 24, 27. And a lot of these are really competitive games. So I don't know. Even if you gave him 28 and you gave Boban 20, Boban Marjanovic with 20 minutes at almost minimum salary is still very much worth it. So, and by the way, one more thing, DJ Wilson has power forward eligibility too.
Let's say that we find out that Boban is not starting. How do you feel about Boban today?
Oddly, I might like him more if it plummets his ownership.
Agreed. Because I think he gets out there no matter what.
He has to.
Yeah.
Who else do you play? I hate saying who else do you play at center when they're locked into a seat, and he could play JJ Barea at the 5 and nobody would give a shit. But they're really like MKG, right? MKG. Who else? Yeah. Justin Jackson.
They don't have another center.
Boban's going to get the minutes. He's got to get at least 20. And numerous times this season, he's actually gotten some run. He played 31 minutes on the last day of the season before it got postponed. He played 31 minutes and shot 12 for 20 with a 31-17 game.
Ridiculous. Okay, so we touched on a couple different value options so far. We have 2 studs playing at 4 o'clock. Devin Booker, Ja Morant. They're separated by $800 on DraftKings. They have very similar bust percentages. They have very similar boom percentages. Who booms more, Ja Morant or Devin Booker? Or is there so much value that you don't care, you're grabbing them both?
I want both.
Yeah, I agree.
Important to consider the fact, too, that Ja Morant on FanDuel is well underpriced.
Yes.
And on SuperDraft, he has a 1.45 multiplier, which I also think is ridiculously cheap on somebody like him. So, you know, that's another thing that we should probably be considering here. But overall, I like both of them. But Ja Morant, I'm not kidding. I think let's say this game stays competitive, right? Because we have to operate under that assumption.
Yes.
I think he plays 45 minutes.
I put him in for 40 this morning.
Yeah.
I can't go any higher than that. Unless you're one of those dudes that like always already play 40 minutes.
Projecting him for 45 is insane.
Sure.
But I really think like his ceiling today is Tom Thibodeau coached Bulls team, you know, big game, almost 48 minutes. That's real. He played 31 consecutive minutes last game. And the only reason he came out in the final 3 minutes or 250 was because the game was completely out of control. He would have played around 45 minutes. That's just way too many minutes not to have interest in him. His point prop today is 23. His assist prop is 10. His rebound prop is 5. You know, that's pretty lofty.
No doubt. Have you seen the line on this game? Phoenix -8.5.
They were -9 an hour ago.
It's 9 in some spots as well.
I'm just saying it's gotten up to 9.
So that means how many minutes do you expect Luka Doncic to be on the floor?
Dude, that is the tough question. I don't think enough.
I don't think I'm not confident that it's like at all.
Right. I know the Suns are playing very well, but Vegas isn't just factoring. You're not saying, oh, well, they're playing good basketball and they need to win this game, so make them monster favorites. Okay, let's do a little exercise here. I think for DFS this will be pretty helpful. let's say Porzingis and Doncic were playing their full run, their full allotment of minutes.
Mhm.
What would the line be at?
Mavs,
Dallas -3?
probably bigger than that.
You think?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Now,
I mean, look, people are going to freak out, but like the two best players in this game would be on the Mavs. That's no slight at Booker. I think it's close. I mean, one is 100% Doncic. Then we're talking about the coin flip between those two. I think I would give the lean a little bit towards Porzingis, and that is massive in an NBA game when you're concentrating talent. So probably something 4, something like that.
We're in 3, 4. Okay, yeah. And then just take Porzingis off. What would you have? Is Porzingis worth 4 points? I'd say he's probably worth 3 or so. You take Doncic off, and now this team just becomes completely gutted. So it's just, you have to think of it that way. If both of these guys were active, even if let's just say the Mavs were only favored by 1, right? Let's just say that. That's still a 10-point swing.
So Caleb in YouTube chat said they played the first game. It was Mavs -5.
Okay.
I think it would probably move to like 4.5 now, just because the Suns are hot.
It would be given the way that the Suns have played. I can assure you it would not be 5.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would move probably 1.5, 2 points. I'd probably put it around again. I'd put it at 3, 3.5, but still, that's a massive swing.
Yeah,
Suns -9 on a neutral court.
I don't think that Luke is going to be involved. I don't think he can be if that's the line. And if you think that Luka Doncic is playing today in any sort of fashion, you should be mashing +8.5, +9, plus whatever you want it to be. That has to be the assumption. Seeing that line, you have to assume Luka Doncic is not stepping on the floor. And if you think that that's incorrect, I hope you can legally sports bet in your state.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. But yeah, the line definitely would be different now than it would be on the opening night of the restart. But it still gives us some idea of what we're looking at. I like John Morant because anytime I can get a ball dominant point guard who is their primary playmaker, leading scorer, and good overall player to get locked in to 40 plus minutes a game, barring a blowout, it's tough to get away from that. Not to mention they're big favorites in this game, and it's pretty likely that Dallas is going to be down both of their top players.
So what do you like from Dallas then? We've got JJ Barea pretty high on the boom bust list. I already mentioned Boban. And then it's just sort of like nobody from Dallas. Is there really just not all that much interesting stuff coming out of the Mavs today?
I think Barea always makes for a good tournament option.
Yeah.
The problem again, though, is unlike Terry Stotts, unlike a Quinn Snyder, Carlisle's so difficult to predict his rotations. It's really, really difficult. Like JJ Barea for GPPs, I think is fantastic because he might play 15 minutes. He might play 25. If he plays 25, you're going to be satisfied with him at that price. He's just still a very good fantasy contributor. It's that simple. Trey Burke is another one. If he's in the starting lineup and then he probably plays around 30 minutes. It's not the craziest idea, but he's also not that cheap. They just still have, Burke and DeLon Wright and Barea. Seth Curry, I'm assuming, is going to play. He's probable for this one. They still have a decent amount of bodies, which makes it a little bit difficult. Just because we expect Luka and Porzingis to be out doesn't actually thin out the rotation all that much.
We just got an update to the boom bust tool 25 seconds ago. Boban's still in the top, projected for 44% ownership. How do you feel about that?
Whew, man, that's a lot.
How do you feel about this? DJ Wilson's projected ownership. You ready?
Yeah.
8.
Well, yes. Just yes.
Yeah.
If DJ Wilson, we talk about the boom bust probability, if he ends up busting, I'm okay with that at sub 10%. As a matter of fact, I'm very okay with that at sub 10%.
We got another big time boomer on here we haven't talked about yet from a different game, but I do want to say from the Milwaukee side, Frank Mason is currently 4th on the boom bust odds.
I just talked about.
I know, 39% chance of a boom, 1% ownership right now in our latest ownership run. But let's transition to the guy that is number 2 on the boom bust list right now. This is the second highest boom. Do you have any idea who it is?
Cheap player.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like real cheap.
Yes. Sub 4K guy.
Is it? Oh wait, let me check his price.
Yeah,
because I think I know.
Let me check his price. Let me check the boom bust list so I can look at it and get this.
Swear to God, is it Alexander Walker?
It is not, but he is up there.
Is it Melly?
It is not.
Those are the two guys that originally I would expect it to be.
I'm pretty sure you have his jersey.
I do not have any Markelle Fultz jerseys. I can assure you of that.
It is not Markelle Fultz.
Uh,
You're getting warmer though.
I have his jersey?
I think so.
Definitely not. I don't know who. Oh wait, no, who is it?
You got warm with Fultz. He was Fultz before Fultz was Fultz. Jaleel Okafor, 56.6% chance of being the boom.
Wow.
6% owned.
I was going to say Michael Carter Williams isn't playing. I thought that's who you were talking about.
I see where you're going. You have Okafor's jersey, right? I'm almost positive you showed me that. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think I have a Noel jersey.
Is it Noel? Okay. Yeah, whatever. Same person.
The wife and I went out. We were at a game. DraftKings gave us like these $150 gift cards each to the shop. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? So we go in, and granted, I was very appreciative. She gets a Michael Carter Williams jersey. Mind you, they were very bad at the time. You didn't have many options.
No,
I got.
You didn't get the Tony Roden jersey that day?
Yeah, exactly. He was gone. I would have. You go to sleep, you wake up. Both of them are off the team. So yeah.
So anyway, Jaleel Okafor with the second highest odds of being a boom today, 56.6% chance. I mean, right away when I look at this,
I was on the right team.
Yeah, yes, you were. Boban Marjanovic and Jaleel Okafor are pretty close in boom percentage. Boban's is a little bit higher, but for sake of argument, let's just call them close. Boban's ownership right now is at 44%. Jaleel Okafor at 6%. To me, that is a natural move to make. Jaleel Okafor in, Boban Marjanovic out, print money in a GPP.
And they're all super cheap. They're $100 separated.
Yep.
New Orleans against an Orlando team that probably won't. I don't anticipate Clifford giving Vooch more than 22 minutes, similar to last game. Yeah, that makes sense to me. The cool thing about value on this slate is we have a pretty good idea of who has the potential, and the boom bust tool really helps. We don't have a good idea of whether or not they're actually going to get the minutes we want them to. But like, we know that if these guys do get the minutes, the likelihood that they produce is very high.
Speaking of getting minutes, just got a little blurb from the news god himself. Someone tweeted at Brad Townsend, who is a beat reporter for the Mavs, and said, probability of Luka playing is pretty low, right? Brad Townsend's response in a tweet, wrong.
Then where are we getting 9 points from?
I mean, we could be getting lost in semantics here.
By playing, he plays a quarter.
Yep, exactly. So I don't know what I can't. There's nothing that I can take away from that information. I can only provide it. A Dallas beat writer said he should see the floor, so to speak. For how long? Who the hell knows?
I'm assuming with that line, not much, but pay attention to it if it changes in the next 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, man, getting center right is going to be so crazy today, especially if like Jaleel Okafor is really a 56% boom. He's not even the only center that has a monstrous boom. Jackson Hayes is 5th.
He's another one.
I'm seeing like almost no reason to play Boban in a GPP today. That seems like cash only.
Jackson Hayes is 5th overall or 5th at center?
5th overall. Boban, Ja, DJ Wilson, Frank Mason, Jackson Hayes. I feel like I'm announcing the G League's boom bust table.
This is crazy. Jackson Hayes, it's funny because you look at his shooting, the guy is hitting every shot he takes. He's just not taking a lot of them.
Yeah.
I
mean,
would
that's because
say
he only shoots from 1 foot or further from the rim.
Exactly. Yeah. I would guess that like 80% of his shots come from within 3 feet of the rim.
Hey, remember when we asked for likes earlier? Got to 380. Whew.
Yeah, they did a fantastic job. They hit that almost immediately.
Yeah, I'm really happy about that. Now I feel like 500 is in our crosshairs. 1,600 people in here. So thanks for being here. We appreciate having you. Shout out to SuperDraft for being the presenting sponsor. We've got 24 minutes until we get to lock. Feel free to start dropping some questions into either premium Slack or into the YouTube chat. We're going to have some time to hit on all sorts of stuff. We have a bunch of centers on this list, and we didn't talk about one that I thought was going to be a relatively high chance for a boom today. Not really. The bust percentage is pretty high. What do you think of Tony Bradley or anybody on the Utah Jazz for today?
This is a really tough game overall. This is a really difficult game.
Yeah.
Ed Davis started a couple games ago and played like 10 or 12 minutes.
Missed that, dude. I love Ed Davis.
Oh, he's a big Ed Davis guy. When Ed Davis would get the minutes, he was fantastic. But yeah, Tony Bradley, he's another +1 per minute guy.
Yeah.
You see the trend here, right? Like these centers off the bench, a lot of them are +1 fantasy point per minute. If they played 30 minutes per game, that might not be the case, but they should still be good enough playing close to the basket. What's Tony Bradley's ownership at right now?
Tony Bradley, from what I see, is definitely on this list. 18.6%.
Okay. So on the 7th of August, Rudy Gobert sat. They went up against the San Antonio Spurs. So same matchup. And here's what happened. Ed Davis started. He caught 2 personal fouls, played 8 minutes into the first quarter. And then he closed out the second quarter, but only played 4 minutes. He then did not return in the second half. Tony Bradley, on the other hand, subbed in with 4 minutes to go in the first, played all the way down till 4 minutes left in the second. So he got 12 minutes there.
Okay.
He then started the second half, played 6 minutes, and then started the fourth quarter and played 4 minutes there. So, there's kind of nothing you can glean from that. Usually
No.
Usually Quinn Snyder makes it easy, but Ed Davis started the first half. Bradley started the second half. Ed Davis didn't play a single minute in the second half. As a matter of fact, subbing in for who would have subbed in for Tony Bradley? I guess it's unimportant, but it would have been, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I think it was Jarrell Brantley. So.
Who?
Jarrell Brantley.
Exactly. That's a made-up name.
So, look, I don't know. Tony Bradley, I think, is okay. I'm a little bit worried that the minutes aren't going to be there. In a game where Ed Davis only plays, how many minutes? Ed Davis played 12 minutes in that game and started, and then Bradley played 22. So I'd say your ceiling in minutes for Bradley, and we've seen this before, even when Gobert's been out, I'd probably put the ceiling around 22 to 24 minutes for Bradley.
I agree. That makes sense to me. Do you feel more comfortable going to someone like Okafor over him? Because that scares the shit out of me.
It's a little bit concerning, yeah. Well, then let me ask you this. What do you think the center rotation should look like for New Orleans?
What do I think it will look like?
Will look like, yeah.
I mean, I think Jackson Hayes gets the largest share of center minutes. I would have assumed that Nicola Melli would play a chunk there, but at this point, I'm probably something like 24, 16, 8. 24, to Hayes or slightly more, like 16 or so to Okafor, wiggle room, and then Melly for a rotation, something in that neighborhood.
Which makes it kind of miserable.
Yep, absolutely. It fits this slate to a T.
Doncic is starting.
Of course he
and
is.
So is Boban.
Doncic, Curry, Hardaway Jr., DFS, Boban. Watch this line now. I cannot imagine that line stays where it is. It has to move.
Let's see.
It just has to.
It is
still holding strong right now.
Let's see. I'm waiting on this one. It's 8.5 plus 100 for the Mavs.
Yep. I'm keeping my eye on that bad boy right now.
Even money.
Okay, so we haven't touched on one guy that is, I think, really important for today's slate, and it's really tricky because he's expensive, and it's not out of the realm of possibility that game is just like sort of off the table. What do you do with Dame today at 11-2?
I play him.
Okay.
Even on DraftKings, I was looking to see how lineups would shake out if I play Lillard, Booker, and Ja Morant. It's still pretty feasible.
Yeah.
It's not that difficult at all, as a matter of fact. Now, I don't know how popular this lineup's going to be because Boban's going to end up sliding in there. Like, you have JJ Barea, you have Wilson, you have Boban, you have all of these other centers, many of them who have power forward eligibility.
Yeah.
You know, you could play all three of the Lillard, Booker, and Ja Morant, and then three of these close at or near min salary guys and still have 5,200 remaining per player. Like, it's super easy to do.
I'm with you.
And I really like it's a must-win game. I know they're heavy favorites, but if Brooklyn even makes this somewhat competitive, boom, Terry Stotts is giving Lillard 40, 41 minutes easy.
Do you think Brooklyn wants to be a spoiler?
No, because they're already in the playoffs.
Okay. You don't think they those guys try to get themselves up like, yo, let's ruin their day? It's
possible. It's possible. Is it possible that the Milwaukee bench players are doing the same thing, and same with Utah against the Spurs?
Yeah, that's a very good point there. Very good point. How many minutes do you expect Damian Lillard plays today?
Over 40.
Yeah.
Unless the game gets out of control, but this is do or die. This is it right here. So I give him, if I was projecting him, I'd project him at 40, 41 minutes.
Okay. Him and Ja just going to be out there for quite a bit of time, I'm expecting.
Yeah, I can't give him less than 40. How do I do that?
No, for Dame, it's safe. If you told me that you want to project him at 48 minutes, I'd be like, yeah, that seems about right.
Right.
I mean, he's just
the fewest amount of minutes he's played in the bubble. One time he played 39 minutes.
Whew.
One time.
God, it's just pure insanity. Still not seeing any move on that line.
No, me neither.
Which is just incredibly confusing to me.
I'm telling you, how does Doncic play more than 15, 20? I don't know. Even if he played 20 minutes, you still think it wouldn't be 8.5, though.
No, I wouldn't. I really wouldn't. It's not like I don't know, with a Rick Carlisle coach team and a decent bench. I don't know. I guess no Porzingis. You don't have Dwight Powell because he's hurt. There's just not a lot of options there.
I have to ask you this question.
Okay.
Do you have any interest in Luka now?
I'll say this much. It's really easy to get him. There's a never-ending supply. How many... Okay, here's the question. How many points do you need out of Luka Doncic on a day where he's 11-4? 50? On a day like today, 4-gamer, raw points matter.
Yeah, around 50. By the way, Bledsoe and Middleton are starting. I'm very, very shocked by that.
Likewise. Let's focus. Too many I don't knows. Yeah, this whole damn slate's an I don't know.
It's not for a lack of focus. It's if you watch any show right now on this slate and they're confidently telling you that they know what's going to happen with Luka Doncic's minutes when the Phoenix Suns are 8.5 point favorites in a neutral stadium, turn it off because they're lying to you and they're just full of shit. So
Yep.
There's going to be I don't knows, but then you sit here and you break it down and you try and come to a logical conclusion. Luka's going to need a lot of. He won't need as much if John Moran or Booker or Lillard struggles, but if all of those guys go for big numbers, then he's going to need a lot. But I still think, even given the ownership disparity, that line is screaming Luka Doncic doesn't play the second half to me.
Yeah, that line is screaming Luka Doncic doesn't play a second rotation to me.
Mm-hmm.
So let's touch on some guys that have some other relatively large boom percentages, rather. We just got another update 39 seconds ago. Okay, well, I guess we need to sort of cycle back. What does Bledsoe and Middleton being in do for you? That takes Frank Mason off the table, right?
Yeah, and yes, it does. But, well, no. All right, so George Hill last game played, how many minutes did George Hill play last game? Let's try and figure this out. 23 minutes last game, right?
Yeah.
So here, George Hill played 23 minutes. Frank Mason was subbing in and out for him. Played 22 minutes. Yeah, I guess now that Frank Mason's price has come up, it takes him out of the question. If Bledsoe plays 20, Mason probably plays 23 or so. If Bledsoe was out, it would have been entirely different. So I think you're right. But still, the Grizzlies are 3.5 point favorites. With if this was regular season game and Middleton and Bledsoe were both expected to play their full minutes, there's no way Memphis would be a 3.5 point favorite. Not even close, even without Giannis.
Yeah, I think Frank Mason is fully off the table now. He's not cheap.
No, if he was minimum salary, I'd be willing to take some stabs. But
sure,
I forgot he's like $4,300.
Yes, he is. Okay, this is just not at all what I was expecting. Luka in, good for Boban, bad for Boban. I think good.
It should be good. Yeah, get him some easy buckets.
Yeah,
offense flows easier. Yeah, I don't think it would hurt him either way all that much, but having the best playmaker on the floor is going to be helpful, and taking Porzingis off the floor with a 30+% usage rate is going to open things up. I think Boban gets a lot of chances. Even at that ownership in the starting lineup, I still really like him.
Samesies. Jeff Williams, question in premium Slack. Middleton or LeVert on FanDuel? I mean,
remember, don't say I don't know.
Yeah. So
I'm going LeVert, by the way. I think the likelihood of LeVert playing more minutes is significantly higher. They already have been locked into their seed, and LeVert's been playing a ton of minutes and balling his ass off. Middleton, the probability that Middleton plays 2 rotations is so much higher than LeVert. So in an instance like this, personally, I'm going with the guy who I think is going to give me more minutes.
I don't really like either guy in this scenario, but Chris Middleton is $1,300 cheaper than LeVert. LeVert $8,300 on FanDuel, Middleton $7K. I'm going to go to Middleton, but I don't think that either one of them is like set up for success today.
Okay. That's fair. DraftKings Middleton's $300 more expensive.
Ooh, interesting. 0.8%
For me, it's LeVert.
For LeVert, 0.8% chance of a boom day today.
Yeah, I guess if the question was LeVert, Middleton, or neither, I'd probably be going with neither.
Firm neither.
Yeah, I think LeVert's an interesting option. I like him more than Middleton, only because like you look at his minutes, man, he is playing a lot, and maybe Jacques Vaughn is going to run these guys out there for a good amount of time today. LeVert, pretty hefty usage rate inside the bubble.
Yeah,
and he's been playing really good basketball. So I don't think it's crazy to look at LeVert.
Illegal Form Nation said price doesn't really matter on FanDuel though, does it? I mean, who can you not fit? I'm just, price is price. I also don't like either one of those guys. So It's not. It's more of a tiebreaker than like a real stance. They neither one of them profiles very well for today.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Simply Z, does DJ Wilson's value come down with Middleton and Bledsoe playing? It should. Oh, you think it does?
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to shoot with Brook Lopez, Bledsoe, and Middleton out there.
I think most of his minutes come with them off the floor.
Okay, I think we're talking about two separate things then. I mean, it certainly comes down to our assumptions of them not being on the floor. My assumption before was that Bledsoe and Middleton were not really going to see the floor, at which point DJ Wilson looks great. Now, it's a little bit different because they are going to be out there for some sort of portion of DJ Wilson. So I'm not saying that he is off the table, but whatever I thought 30 minutes ago, it's slightly worse for him now.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. Tyler is just spamming chat with this question, so I'm going to get it over with.
No, just don't answer it then.
So I'm going to because I have a pretty good answer. Sterling Brown, Wes Iwundu, or Gary Clark, Josh?
You're too good of a person.
Oh, no, you're answering those.
You want me to answer it? Oh, well, that's easy. I don't know which site it is, so I don't have an answer. Boom.
God.
What do you want me to do? It's different on both sites. Is this on SuperDraft?
Yeah, I guess so.
I'll pick my multiplier.
What about if you've seen ownership? I don't know. There's so much good value. I know that the whole Doncic thing is going to throw a wrench into the works and Middleton and everybody starting. But I still, like right now, you've got, you know what? I got to refresh this. What's Iwundu's ownership right now?
11.
And what's Clark?
Iwundu 12, Clark 8. Who is the third guy?
Sterling Brown.
4. I think it's probably Iwundu for me. And I've been riding the Gary Clark train hard, but that dude doesn't do anything on the damn basketball court.
And Sterling Brown is completely reliant on how many minutes you're going to see from some of these other guys on the
yeah, I mean, he could just not really be out there.
Right. And if he is out there with starters, he's going to see just virtually no opportunities at all.
We got 7 minutes until lock. Premium Slack. Get your questions in. YouTube chat. Get questions in if you're interested. 1,667 people in here. 473 likes. I'm not going to ask again. We just need 26 more because 500 is a really cool number. Hit that thumbs up. We appreciate you guys. We're happy to be here. Shout out to SuperDraft. Shout out to everything.
You know how I know that people are listening to that and just say screw it? Because when we did the one chip challenge, you lost and you had to eat the one chip. And I said, if we hit like 500 likes, I'll do it. You remember that?
And they hit it in like 5 seconds.
Immediately, we have 500 likes. So as long as it's one of us in pain, there's no problem with that. Here's a good question: Brandon Clark or Mikal Bridges?
We hit 500. Thanks, guys.
Oh, beautiful.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
Round of applause.
Brandon Clark or Bridges? Whew.
Bridges is playing quite a bit of minutes. He's also $5,300 on DraftKings. Brandon Clark is $5,200.
I would rather go to Brandon Clark. I think it's more likely that Brandon Clark stumbles into a couple extra minutes than Mikal Bridges stumbles into more offense.
Okay.
Like, I love Bridges, but his role is to guard the other team's best wing and, like, bust his ass defensively. Whereas I think Clark can get involved shooting a little bit today.
Grizzlies starting Morant, Brooks, Anderson, Tolliver, and Valanciunas.
Yeah. I like the move that they made there, moving Tolliver to the starting lineup to play with Valanciunas for floor spacing and then getting Clark out on the floor with Gorgeous Dong. It's a better balance.
Little 3-and-D there. Phoenix moved to 8. But they're minus 118 still.
Okay.
Someone asked on our thoughts about small forward on FanDuel. Presumably a shallow position.
Yeah.
You play more FanDuel than I do.
I do. Let me pull it up here. So.
Oh yeah, it's ugly.
Yeah, bowling shoe ugly. Well, you're clearly not playing. I can't imagine wanting to. No matter how many minutes I think he's playing, Tim Hardaway Jr. ends up being a tough sell if Luka is in. Jeez, it might Melo might be the best option. Is that a sentence I'm saying in 2020? Carmelo Anthony at 5,400 might be the best small forward option on FanDuel. That is gross.
It is gross. What about Joe Harris? Do you think he gets the minutes? Actually, honestly, you know what? We just had a question about Bridges. My top option probably at 5K is going to be Miles Bridges for one reason. All of these other guys, I'm very uncertain about their playing time. Bridges, no, not a high upside guy. His boom rating is probably like a 0.00001, but he's going to get 33, 34 minutes and in a must-win game. So I actually don't have an issue with 5K Bridges at all. Cameron Johnson is another one whose minutes are likely going to be above 30 as well.
Yeah.
Phoenix small forwards really aren't the worst idea on FanDuel where your options are highly limited.
You could pay all the way down and pick out of the grab bag of Zanan Musa, Vic Law, Kenrich Williams, and Jarrell Brantley.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah. My answer I think is Melo. Keldon Johnson was probably 2 for me. He's 4,300.
My answer would be one of the Phoenix forwards.
That's fair. I would just be nervous that whoever I picked, I got wrong, and it ends up being the other guy.
Yes, but at least they'll get the minutes. That's all.
Oh, boy.
Our chat auto blocked Rudy Gay.
I'm not a big gay guy.
No, not today. I'm not. He is also small forward eligible.
He is. I would much rather have Carmelo Anthony.
They're huge favorites, though. Huge favorites, the Spurs.
Yeah. Yeah, Utah not playing any. Well, Utah's playing some real basketball players, at least.
Rudy Gay's minutes are so unpredictable. It's insane.
I thought that he was just going to be like a 30-minute stretch for them for the entire season.
I know. Man, he goes out and he balls. It's just, you know how Popovich is. No real interest. Let me ask you this, Josh, and this will probably help everybody. We got a minute or two left.
Yeah.
If you were starting a lineup on DraftKings or FanDuel, whatever, and you're building out a core, and you needed 2 top price guys and you needed 2 minimum salary guys, or within the vicinity of minimum salary, who would they be?
All right, I'm going to do it for FanDuel if you want to do it for DraftKings.
Sure.
How's that? Okay.
Sure.
So,
all right, I'll go for it.
2 at the top, 2 at the bottom.
Yep.
All right. So if I'm paying up on FanDuel for anybody, I want Devin Booker. And I think that I want to go to Damian Lillard because I assume I'm going to have enough salary. If I find out that I don't, I'm happy to go to Ja Morant because of his price tag. But I assume that I'll have enough. So it's Booker and Dame for me at the top. And then if I'm looking for just straight up bargains to pick on FanDuel, oh boy. Man, this is I think that I'm fine turning my center position over to Boban. And then I'm going to hope that Nickeil Alexander-Walker plays a ton. Not projected for a ton of ownership, but I like that opportunity. Dude likes to shoot.
I'm going to go Lillard and Booker, and I'll throw Morant in there too. I just really think let me put it to you this way, Josh, having the top player on each of those 3 teams that needs to get a win, all 3 of them desperate for a win. They need it. It's do or die time. Right? If having all 3 of them, to me, even at high ownership, is very logical. They're going to do everything they can. They're all going to play 40 minutes or close to it. Cheap, Boban Marjanovic, DJ Wilson, I still have interest in. And especially with their son out. And my favorite, like, straight boom or bust guy would have been JJ Barea with Doncic out. But I think I go to Tony Bradley now.
Okay. I don't hate it. He should be out there for solid minutes. I have one last question for you.
Shoot.
You ready? Who's playing in the West play-in game Saturday?
Fun stuff. I'm going to go. So if Memphis wins, do they get it? If Portland wins and Memphis wins, Memphis gets into the playing game. Right?
I have no idea anymore, man.
I think that's how it goes.
If Portland wins,
Portland definitely gets in if they win. No, they would get into the 8th seed, as a matter of fact. I know
if they win, Memphis, Phoenix, and San Antonio, if they all lose, they definitely get the 8th seed.
I'm going to go because Phoenix and Memphis could both win, and Memphis makes it.
Yeah.
So I think Phoenix wins for sure. But I think after some deliberation yesterday and today, I'm going Portland in the 8th seed, so they only have to win one.
Agreed.
Against Memphis in the 9th seed. What about you?
I'm going Portland and Memphis as well. The sun stops shining in Phoenix, and then Portland just absolutely beats the brakes off of them on Saturday, and it doesn't matter.
I think you're, man.
And then they run straight through the damn Lakers.
We got to get Portland in if you want good basketball. Like if you want really good basketball, Lakers Blazers could be an awesome series. So
I am not rooting for that, by the way.
Why not?
I don't want the Lakers to have to work harder in the first round because I don't think that Portland is good enough to beat them at all. It's just slightly more effort. I would rather them just destroy.
You're a Lakers fan?
I'm a LeBron fan.
Oh wow. I would love the Lakers to lose.
No.
And I would love Lillard to win in the first round.
I would love that too, but I don't think that there's a chance in hell. I don't think Portland's like remotely close to good enough.
All right. Behemoth Expert says Portland and San Antonio. Yeah. I mean, it's technically possible, but they're going to need everything to go right for them.
For San Antonio to get the 9 seed, they need to win, and they need 2 losses combined from Phoenix, Portland, and Memphis.
Exactly. Phoenix 8-point favorite, Memphis 3.5-point favorite, Portland 9-point favorite.
Yeah, good luck. Also, it's very clear Behemoth Expert 5000 lives in San Antonio. Greg Popovich's burner account is here, and we are not any longer. Thank you for joining us. NBA Live Before Lock is done. Thank you to SuperDraft for being the presenting sponsor of the show. Go to superdraft.io. Use the promo code Awesemo10. Get yourself $10 on your first deposit of 10 or more. Get yourself 20 on 100 or more. Laffy, anything else before we get out of here?
Nah, good luck. Enjoy these games. Great day of basketball. All of these Western Conference games are going to be awesome. Pay attention to these lines too. Live betting. There's going to be some good stuff happening. If we see that some of these starters get sat early on out of rotation, pounce on that if given the opportunity.
That is it. We are out of here. Tune in 7:30 MMA strategy show. Pete the Heat Rogers, Jason Floyd breaking down this Saturday's UFC 252 pay-per-view. Stipe Miocic, Daniel Cormier 3. I cannot wait. For Laffy, I'm Josh. We're out.